wonderful turnout. And as you know, we do a lot in the community, and we work with the community and the city, and we also do a lot inside with our neighborhood watch group. So, as always, we first start off with our flag salute. We have Mike Corbett that will lead us in our flag salute. Mike Corbett.
Okay, for you that may be wearing a hat, would you please remove your hat, please? I pledge the flag.
To the flag.
To the flag.
Of the United States of
America.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And Mike is a retired Redlands police officer as well. And introductions. Today we have our Chief of Police, Sean Police, in the back. We have our board members here. Would you just raise your hand? The board members and
the city of Beaumont, and by the California legislation. So the assembly, this is just one of them. I won't read you all of them, but they're all very, very well earned by Anita. Anita, you need to come up here, you little chicken. I'll read you just the one from the California Legislative Assembly. Certificate of Recognition presented to Anita Worthen. Veterans Services Lifetime Achievement Award in honor of the 2nd Annual 5th District Volunteer Appreciation Awards. On behalf of the California State Assembly, it's my privilege to present you with this certificate of recognition for serving as a role model to our community through your outstanding accomplishment and leadership. I commend you on your dedication and selection as an honoree for the annual 5th District Volunteer Appreciation Awards, and this is signed by Assembly Member Jose Medina of the 61st Assembly District. One of many awards she was awarded. Now you make her wear that all night. Thank you, Ray.
Ray Santos is actually a wonderful person, so make sure you vote for him.
All right. Thank you, Ray. You'll just make her carry those home. Thank you.
My thing that I do a lot of work with is veterans, military, family, and friends. It's a passion of mine as well as community service, and I thank you very much.
I'm going to introduce the best city manager in Southern California in just a minute. But I do want to tell you this about your city. Your city is on a considerable upswing. The first time I think I got before you, that was not the case. We have really turned the city around. Basically, in the city, there is not a commercial area in the city that we do not have interest in, from a retail outlet, a restaurant, whatever it is. So we are really in demand as a city for improving your quality of life choices that you've been asking for years. Across the street from you, I won't give you the list. The city manager is going to tell you all of what's going across the street, but we have everything from auto dealerships to restaurants to movie theaters. Why do we care so much about this? Because this is what puts the balance on our taxes in the city, and this is what keeps us solid and keeps us from dipping like we have in the past. That's one key area. Another thing that we're doing is we're improving infrastructure and access in and off the highway all through the city of Beaumont. If some of you were here for my State of the City address, one of the things that I said about the pass area is a rising tide floats all boats. And one of the things that we're doing is we want to look like the best area that there is when you drive through the 10 on your way to the desert, on your way to LA. We want everybody to want to stop here, have lunch, spend their tax dollars, ease the burden on our local residents, and also to give you pride in your community. We want the traffic to be eased by those improvements that we're doing. We have 4 intersections off of the highway that we're improving now with minimal burden on our community for tax dollars for that. So we have been listening to improving the belt that goes through this community so that we can alleviate the traffic concerns that you have on your secondary roads. So again, the city manager will talk more about that as he gets through his projects. But I have a packet that's given to me every single week that is about this thick of the projects that the city is working on to improve your community. We're also extraordinarily fiscally sound. One of the things that you're going to hear is that we went out to bond for improvements on our wastewater treatment plant. There was a lot of noise in the community that we weren't financially strong enough to do this. The bond is not going to be paid for directly by anybody in this room. We're not applying the bond to you. It's being paid for through sewer rates. So we were able to go to Standard & Poor's in San Francisco, and this community was able to get an A+ rating from Standard & Poor's. That is pretty remarkable for a community that just 4 years ago, people were worried if we were going to be financially solvent. And on the first day of the sales of those bonds, they were all sold in one day. So that's what other people think of your community. So with that, I want to tell you about Todd Park. Every place I go, they say, "You got a great city manager there." And I say, "Yeah, I know, stay away from him." We also have a great chief of police, and I say the same thing about him. Stay away from him. We like him. So Todd came to us, and Todd basically put on his holster from Texas and came to the state of California and signed up for a challenge that we really vetted and tried to find the best person that we could for him. And we did. Todd signed up for what was an unbelievable challenge, which was to turn us around, to make us sustainable, to help us improve the quality of life for our residents, and to give you confidence that your property, the value of your property was going to be protected, that we were not an at-risk city, that we stopped being out of the news about the bad stuff that was going on, and that we changed the integrity of a lot of the flow of what was going on in Beaumont. We've put in across the board restricted funds, new policies, finance and audit committees, of which some of your citizens in this community are actually members of, and we have strived to do every step of the way. We want to hear your questions today. Please fill them out. If you have a question that doesn't relate to CFDs or anything like that, put it down. We care about it. We really, truly do. Make sure you put your information on it, and we will follow up with you. So with that, I will turn it over to the rock star city manager that we got from Texas.
I think they got the wrong person. Must be another Todd Park person. So, how's everybody feeling? Pretty good? Good dinner? Good complex carbs? You got your proteins in? So we can go to about midnight? Is that good? No? Go for it. What you're eating right now? Did you bring enough for everybody? Oh, that's back there. What is it? Ice cream. You can't beat ice cream, that's for sure. So, Anita, thank you for helping to get this organized. It's always, I think, a very welcome opportunity for the people, bureaucrats like me, to be able to come and speak and really be able to touch base with people, because most of the time when I come in, y'all go the other direction. So we are kind of here and fixed. There's been, as the mayor had alluded to, there's been quite a bit of activity that's happened over the last 2 years. I got here Halloween of 2016. I was looking for my presentation. There it is. And so it's been fast and furious. The situation of the city has changed quite dramatically over that 2-year period. And so it could not happen without a very strong council. They stood up to a lot of questioning. They've addressed issues head-on with staff, with decisions that they've made. They've held hard and fast to try to do the best by our citizens, and I think the results of those efforts of the council really show. So it's pretty incredible when you look at that. Any one issue of the 5 that I dealt with when I got here were kind of things that in a career you deal with maybe 1/2. So it's been, quite an interesting time. I think really kind of the genesis for tonight was a question about Mello Roos. And that's so impactful, obviously, from a financial perspective within the community. Council's been working very hard to try to hone that program in. And I'd like to take a couple quick slides to kind of show you what they've been doing. So, the City Council, again, looking at this, is to try to say, what is it that we can do? What kind of program do we need to think about? I don't think it's probably any secret that when you looked at how the CFD program was created and how it was being implemented, it was really being done in a way that stretched the program out as far as it could to be as much bond dollars and as much cost rolled in. And we know that there were some ulterior motives to a lot of those decision making. So one of the things that the council did say, hey, you know what, how do we go back and take what is here today and make a better situation out of what's there? And not from a perspective of what are we going to do right now, but how do we structure this and how do we move this on into the future to continue to progress? So, in so doing, the City Council really defined basically these 4 points as key points that they're trying to address in addressing the Mello Roos program, the CFD program in Beaumont. So the first critical thing was to provide savings. And so there's a number of ways to do that. Refinancing where you can to secure savings. Looking at structuring the program for new bond sales. And as the program moves forward to really hone it back in. One of the key things is I try to say, if we're going to make an assessment of dollars, what is the basis for that assessment? It's not because we can tax it. It's because there's a specific reason and objective for doing that. Equalizing the payments. A lot of people are on fixed incomes, or a lot of people are stretched as they acquire their homes. And so Council is very concerned about, hey, how do we make Beaumont as affordable as we possibly can? Keeping in mind that a lot of what we're dealing with today are things that are there, that we can't make it go away, but we can try to make it better. And it's going to take some time on some of that. But some of the key things that Council has heard is about the 2% escalators. And a lot of y'all have been subject to those over the years. But how do we eliminate those where we can? Or in other cases, how do we go through the process to create level assessments on the properties as we move forward? Do not extend the term of my bonds. I think I've heard that at least once or twice. And again, where we refinance, don't do it. If a bond terminates in 20 years, don't refinance it and add another 10 years. Don't tack that on. Where we cannot eliminate the 2% and there's some additional bonds to sell, can we do what they call wrapping those around so that you can create the same effect? I've got an example of that. Then ultimately, transparency. A lot of the questions I get are, hey, Todd, where did that dollar go? Why isn't it in my improvement area? Why is it funding streets way over there? We don't have budget mechanisms in place at this point. We're building them so we can begin to assess exactly where that dollar came from and then what is the basis that we're allocating it. And if it goes outside your neighborhood, where is it going and why? So we're developing those programs right now. But I'll tell you that when you look at the overall general fund, we're spending $33 to $34 million a year. There's about $5 million of Mello Roos services taxes that come over. And so they pay for an important part, but again, the overall cost for the system far exceeds what's coming over on those services side. So one of the things that, as I talk to people, there's some confusion out there about what are CFDs. When we talk about Mello Roos, what are they? For Beaumont, we've got these 3 basic types. The top 2, almost everybody in here, I'm sure, is assess those. One is for facilities. And again, the purpose of those are limited term assessments, so they're supposed to expire either when the debt goes away or take a maximum of 40 years, I think, 50. So at some point they're supposed to be gone. Where there's dollars that come in, they're supposed to go on that program to specific capital improvements. Services are ongoing, and so the services are in perpetuity. And so those are things that cover regular kind of city maintenance kind of things. If it's streets or parks or rights of way, one of the things that we've been trying to ramp up is our parkway maintenance. And if you look along the boulevard, for example, on Ventura, those medians don't look really good. So we have a program to go back and to redo those medians, re-landscape, clean them up, fix the irrigation systems. And so part of those costs can be covered through the CFD services program. That's part of what they're there to do. And the newest one that Council has been applying to new CFDs or restructured ones has been public safety. So, how are we going to try to fund and keep up with the public safety costs? We have a fantastic police department. They really are top-notch, I think, in any state, anywhere. I think I would stack them up against anybody anywhere, and they're pretty amazing. So, how do we keep them staffed? How do we keep them rolling in the streets and supported? And so, the public safety is critical to us for evolving and creating a quality of life, obviously. Now, on the public safety side, improvement areas 7A1, 7E, 7C, and 7D are not subject to those assessments. For Four Seasons, it's really only the new CFD 2016-4 that's there. So here's a quick map that shows you, so you can see where your improvement area is. I've got a few slides I'll kind of roll through, unless y'all have some specifics a little bit later about your particular CFD in terms of some of the basics that's there. But you can see 2614 is right kind of there in the middle. It's the last piece that's building out. It's about halfway. So, okay. This is kind of illustrative of where the council's been trying to go to kind of help address the assessment impact on everybody. So if you look at each of the specific CFDs, you can see that for 7A1 through 7C, there's actually been reductions in your assessments. And again, council's been looking for ways, hey, do we have to collect this assessment? Can we refinance? Now, for Four Seasons, you don't have bonds that the council could have refinanced to this point. But we're constantly evaluating that every single year. But what are some of the things that we can do to reduce the cost? Reduce administrative costs, reduce pay-go is a big portion. So pay-go is that section we tax you for the facilities. It goes to pay your debt service. And sometimes there's an additional amount that's assessed beyond what's needed to meet those contract requirements. That's what you call pay-go. So we're reducing those where we can. So overall, when you look at the overall income that is generated through your CFD dollars, through your Mello Roos dollars for Four Seasons, including everybody, including 2016-4, there's $2.2 million that are coming in this year. And out of that, about 65%, so if you look at 2019 debt service payments and you look at future facility or pay-go, that's 24%. 65% of it goes to facilities. So that either goes to bonds that were sold to reimburse the developer or for projects that might have been done by the city. And so the rest of that, those two-thirds, goes to administrative costs of the program. And then you'll see about 20% of it goes towards maintenance services. So the lion's share of what is being taxed is actually going to facilities. A lot of people said, hey, somebody backed the truck up and drove off with my money, right? It doesn't work that way. That's not really what happened. What happened was staff was involved in contracting, and then they got rewarded for the contract work. So there was money that came back. So that's where that happened. But we do know what improvements were done, and we do know what dollars were there. We reconciled all of that stuff. So I told you just a minute ago, I know someone else at the time, you just said that you eliminated the pay-go side, right? We did, with the exception of these, right? The government, I guess, will always have an exception. But what you'll see is in 7B and 7D that there's about $400,000 of assessments that we're looking at pay-go for this year. We are in the process of issuing some bonds for 7B and 7D to finish out bonding those sections. And so it sounds weird to say, well, Todd, why would you sell bonds to save me some money? But actually, the way the CFD program is, that's the way it works. You have to finish bonding a project to be able to reduce or set rates different than what's specified that you have to collect for each property that's within the community. And so that's where it comes from. CFD 2016-14 has no debt issued yet. There's no bonds for it. We have a contractual obligation with K-Albanian to issue some bonds at some point when it's significantly built out. So That's where your pay go is. That's all. That's 100% of your pay go is collected out of the Four Seasons area. And these are just kind of some maps showing, and if there's any specific information you want to know a little bit later, we can kind of roll back through some of these. So, again, one of the key issues that were tackled, and we were going and actually completing the bid sales for this bond sale, these two bond sales actually this morning. And these numbers really have borne out with the sale they have. But for 70 and 70, there's a total of about $6 million in bonds that were sold between those two improvement areas. And in the 7B side, we had some bonds for 7B that were being paid on that were originally sold in 2012. So again, council said, hey, we're not going to extend this existing debt, we're not going to extend anybody beyond that existing bond side. So the new debt will be sized to hit that 2039 threshold, which is the same threshold that we have for 2012 for full payment. And structuring it this way and applying some of those criteria for cost savings that we have. No escalators, don't exceed 2% of the value, all those kinds of things that go into it. The result of selling those bonds and restructuring is that 24% savings that is coming on the tax roll now for improvement area 7B. Sorry about that. Is that better? So 7D kind of works the same way. So 7D didn't have an assessment that was quite as high, but again, we had 3.7 million. Now there are no outstanding bonds on 7D. So this is all new debt that's there, and we've been assessing at the max assessment rate that's established. And by selling, and again, applying those same cost-saving mechanisms, there's about a 10% savings that will start to be realized next year as we move through. So one of the other questions was, okay, what are you going to do with the money? So we identified about $12 million worth of projects that those funds could be applied to. Over the past 20 years or so, Cal Median actually had done quite a bit of utility extensions, lift stations, force mains, extensions to actually serve Four Seasons. And so about $11 million of first priority reimbursement back to them is where the first $11 million of eligible project funds would go. Ventura Bridge improvements for about another $1.7 million. Those are a lower order of priority. So we're selling 6. So that means that really the reimbursement back for the sewer improvements is where all that money is going to reimburse for that. As we look at 2016-4, then there's some additional funds that will go into sewer from there that begin to make up some of the difference. And some of that may then apply back over to Ventura as we move forward. So this is again an example. Again, council is trying to say, you know, how do we lessen the impact on everybody's pocketbook as much as possible? So in the last couple of years, we've refinanced, and you know, the first refinancing effort last year actually saved assessments for about 9,000 homes within the community, about 6,000, I'm sorry. And then our last round of efforts and cost savings saved money for about another 3,000. So about 9,000 or 12,000 homes have actually seen some sort of reduction in the last couple of years from Mello Roos. In looking at 7B, this is, again, just to give you an example of how the level of debt service is applied. So we've got the new bond sales that we're doing. We've got the existing debt, which is the gray bars that you see there. And we said, okay, you know, that, and then interest is the dark blue on the 2012. So that escalates over time. We sell the new bonds and we structure that so that, again, we pay a little bit more up front and less on the backside that levels all that out. And by doing that, we now have completely bonded your improvement area, which allows us now to set your assessment rate below the assigned rate. So that's 76% of where you are. And again, on 7D, again, there's an escalator provided in 7D, so we structured this one with level debt service as we finish that out. And again, we're able to do that with our other fiscal constraints that council set. So now you've got a 10% cost savings, and that debt service is going to be rounded through the life. So, anyway, so that's really kind of a quick overview on the Mello Roos side. So one of the other questions I think that's out there is, what is the city doing? You know, you've got Mello Roos coming over. You're spending it. We know you're spending it. But what is the city doing to be able to lessen the load? Right now, about 80% of our property value on the tax roll comes from single-family residential. 80% of it. And when you look at what happens with state tax law, when we hit a recession and those property values drop, the assessments drop, and revenue to the city needs to drop. So that is on residential, not on commercial. So we're trying to diversify that. And you can see what happened to us in 2011, 2012. That's the belly of the recession that hit in 2009. So you can see what the effect the value had. So we were building homes, remember in that time? We didn't have much commercial going, but homes kept getting built. And even with that added value, we still lost probably about 20%, 25% of the property value for the city. So for fiscal sustainability, we started the process of doing multi-year fiscal modeling. So how do we know that your city is going to remain solvent? How do we know that we're going to be able to continue to do the programs and things that we're committing to? Well, we start to run these models. What this shows you is what happens to the city's property tax revenues as we hit recessionary trends. We've identified a process and a trend that affects the city of Beaumont, and this is what it reflects in that process. So you can see relying on single-family residential is very, very much of a roller coaster for the city moving forward. So here's what your sales and lease tax revenues look like. So the key thing that we have to look at is trying to cultivate and develop that residential. So when the mayor talked about the commercial activity on the city and the fact that we've got interest in every corridor on the city, it seems like every corner has some level of interest. You know, we expect to actually see this revenue cycle rise if we can land and get on here. One of the things that I know we're pretty excited about is what's going on in the 2nd Street Marketplace area. So what we call the San Antonio has a little project over there by Kohl's. We've got a project that's entitled for Strip Center, that's their small retail. But there's also an area that's entitled for movie theater. And so we've got a group that's interested in looking at that. So we're looking forward to that. We know that the next movie theater that lands out here is going to have to be a 10 to 12 screen multiplex kind of theater. We're hoping for a couple large format and some shaking seats. So be careful if you buy Dr. Pepper like that. It's made there. It'll be working. So we are looking at that, and there is interest. So we're hopefully have something that we can tell you on in the future. But I don't know if y'all seen the Panera out there and the Sonic. It's been sitting built and not open. You see that? Believe it or not, they've been waiting for Cal Edison to hook them up. Everything's set, they're ready. All we need is Cal Edison to come. So Kyle Brzezinski is our economic development manager. He calls Cal Edison probably every 30 minutes and says, are you there yet? Are you there yet? We do have cords. If you want to bring some more, we'll open them up. But they're pretty much ready to go. All they need is a little bit of power. That's all they need. But again, we've got some significant interest on the rest of the way down 2nd Street, all the way down to Kohl's. So one of the critical issues is going to be traffic out there. Have y'all seen traffic right around 2nd Street? So, the mayor had a very wise saying. She told me today. She said, said, don't think of it as a negative time. It's a positive. It's a chance to hear the end of your song. So, thank you, said the meeting's right to say a lot. And I'll kind of highlight a little bit more. See if there's anything else interesting. Again, just kind of, we have an overall overview of our general revenues as we're going through. And just one last comment on CFD. And again, the credibility of our CFD program has been a major challenge. It will continue to be a challenge for us moving forward, I know. But one thing is that when we look at our CFD funds, those are special revenues. So we can't just lead them over and do whatever we want to with them. The types of expenses are specified within the contracts, they're specified in the elements that we're building the program, and so they have to go to these specific things. We're looking at enhancements right now so that we can provide the answers that people are asking. Where is my money going? Why are you using it? How much is exported and why? Why did they even? So those are answers that we're working to try to address. Is there anything we missed on that? Okay, would you like to hear about some fun stuff then? Yes. Some fun stuff? Yeah. Some fun stuff. You can keep talking about Mello Roos if you want to. So we've got activities that are going on really throughout the entirety of the city. So we could probably have a what's going on in Beaumont that could take us, I don't know, several weeks. So if we want to keep doing these every couple nights, would be good. Are y'all up for that? No? Okay. One of the critical issues that doesn't really get a lot of discussion is our general plan update. So we are about a little over a year into our general plan. And so that's looking at our long-term land use plan, balance of land uses. It's got a review of what the overall economic balance of the community should be. And so we're working forward to that. Once that project gets done, then we get to delve into zoning and begin to revise zoning and look at our development regulations and begin to modify that. So that's underway. We actually had a number of kind of online surveys that we did. So people went online, looked at pictures, identified things that they liked or didn't like. So a lot of that has been forwarded to our consultants and it's being wrapped up into our plan. So it'll be very, very responsive to a lot of community input that we've received. So we've had between 700 to 900 or so respondents to each one of the surveys that we've done. So ironically, we did town hall kind of meetings and work sessions. We had 8 people that showed up. So we like the online thing. That's cool. One of the other things that we spend a lot of time working on is our transit. I don't know how many folks use transit. Did you know that you can actually get on a Beaumont bus, you can get a connection down into Redlands, or you can go to San Bernardino, and you can get all the way to Disney? Did you know that? We have travel trainings that we do, which are free, that you can actually contact the transit office, and you can get a ticket, and they'll take you down there. So, I don't know if you're like me, I get excited when I think about Disney. You know? Me either, I really don't. I heard it's nice. The kind of the more exciting things is that we're working on some other linkages in the Redlands. So we've got a commuter link that was launched here in September, and it really is designed to get people to the the Mountain Vista Shopping Center right there off of Lagonia, and then to the VA and then to Kaiser. So it's getting, starting to get people to kind of those key places they want to go. We've got a brand new bus that's arriving here in October, and that bus is going to have a brand new wrapper on it, so we're rebranding, and you're going to see an exciting bus driving around. But it's all kind of exciting stuff. One of the things that we've been looking at, and really has been the direction of the mayor, is to look at a transit hub for our city. And so a place that begins to link up bus and other modes of transit that we can link our community and try to get people to places to work and to other areas. From a economic development perspective, we have just launched an economic development strategic plan. And that plan is going to look at where Beaumont is today, what kind of positive economic markets are there. We're having a lot of job growth within our community, so in the last couple of years we've added about 500 jobs to our community. We have 2 new business prospects which are actually being developed today that are bringing in about another 1,300 to 2,000 jobs into the community. And so, some of these jobs are coming in, there'll be management, there'll be higher tech kind of jobs, paying above $25 an hour and above. And then there's a lot of service jobs also that are in the $15 an hour range. So we have a range of jobs coming in. Wolverine, we did a grand opening for them at the end of last year. Wolverine Boots over there off of 4th Street on the west side of town. They actually had a job fair to fill 80 positions. They filled it in about half a day. So those jobs were filled by people who live in Beaumont, who live in Banning, who live in Calamasa. They're just right here. And so we know that there's a strong market. When we talk to these businesses that are coming in, why Beaumont? They love the access. So the access to 60 and the 10 gives them ready access down into San Diego, and then we've got the corridor here. And then they like our workforce. And then the affordable, relatively affordable housing that's out here are things that are bringing in. One of the things we'll be presenting to council soon is a concept for our downtown plaza. So the idea that downtown really is kind of the heart of our community, is the identity, makes us special. So we're looking at a plaza to try to begin contemplating what City Hall should look like and how we make that really more attractive as a place to be. We're also looking at 6th Street. How do we address 6th Street and make it more pedestrian oriented, make it more appropriate for retail to be able to grow in local business. There's some interest out there, but I don't know, as if I tried to walk downtown Beaumont, it's not real pedestrian friendly, so we're in the process of visioning and doing that now. I'm sure that'll come with some costs, so it'll be better for Sorry. That's a question. We've launched some business retention expansion projects. So we know that there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are out there. We hear from them, people call up saying, hey, I'm looking for a place to build a school, to Montessori school. We had a group that was interested in that, to do these other types of businesses that currently have their homes are looking for space. So we've started a little networking clutch that we do probably, right now we're doing it every quarter, but those interested in starting a small business are invited to come out and link up with each other. At some point we'll be bringing in experts to come provide for some sort of technical workshop. How do you set the business plan? How do you secure financing? What things are out there? How can they support each other? So we're kind of working through that area there. Let's see if I can do that. I guess the last, two other industrial projects that you're interested in. 4th Street. Yes, ma'am. So if you've driven down 60 and you see where the hills got leveled on the south side of 60, that's an industrial project. It's about 2 million square feet of industrial and commercial space that's there. So that project is involved with another project over on Wolverine, where we have another major employer coming in. They're doing extensions of the trail down from the bridge that we're building, and they're extending 4th Street and utilities back in that area. So they're providing that funding, and they're matching up with the city's dollars, and they're matching up with the highway dollars that we did that are doing the trail interchange. So that's opening up that area there. And all those road connections are going to help to lead that commercial traffic from downtown over towards 16 to 10 and to come back up that direction. And the interchange improvements that we're building for signalization in Oak Valley and I-10 are part of the vision to help create circulation back over in that area. And then Mayor already talked about the sewer plant. Do you want to hear more about the sewer plant?
No.
No? Okay. Would you like to review some questions?
Okay, you gave us some great questions. I'm going to give Todd a chance to read through the questions. I read through them ahead of time. One of the, Philip asked a great question. When can we have a new building for the post office with safe parking, handicap parking? Can the city work with the state and the feds on this? All right, that one in particular, there's actually all of them reported to me, but let me talk about this one. Many of you may have just heard that I just took a trip on the 20th of September to Washington. I got an invitation from the White House to come out for panel discussions and meetings at the White House. I couldn't have been more pleased to go, and I also couldn't have been more pleased with the timing, because I was already talking to the congressman about a new post office. I've been talking to him now for 3 years about it. It's a long process to get a post office, but he is on board with doing whatever he can to help us get leverage on getting a new post office. That's also one of the things that I brought up when I was in Washington and talking with people in Washington. I also met with our lobbyists, our federal lobbyists that we've just engaged to try to facilitate getting a post office. So this is where we're at right now. It's actually been a project that's been very important to me. I feel like, it's quaint, let's say, that post office that we have. We are now a city of 47,000 people. We have outgrown the quaint quite a while ago. So this is where I'm at now. I'm due to write up a report that, by the way, they told me informally nobody wants to see until after the election. So I'm writing a report to be turned over to the congressman. He has assigned 2 people to a team to work with me to see how we can lift this up from the grassroots and get it to be seen on the federal level to get a new post office. Our post office underserves us because of the size and the quaintness. It's dangerous getting in and out. It is not handicap friendly. And that's even in the slow season. When it comes to holidays, it becomes outrageous. Nobody can get a parking space. Nobody can get it. They're wonderful people that work behind the counter. They have the best attitude, but we need something better. So, Philip, I absolutely hear it, and I'm on board with doing whatever we can to do that. And that is one of my priorities. Is it going to happen in 6 months? No. But if you don't set up the process, meet with the people, write the report, do the statistics, say this is how we've grown, this is the square footage, these are the amount of people that are there, and if you don't do that project, nothing will ever happen. So that's what I have to say about the post office. I turned over a lot of the questions to Todd because he could speak to a lot of the questions. But before I give back the microphone, let me tell you this. Some of what we say may seem like it's not really that important. You know, the wastewater treatment plant sounds really important, but I really kind of care about the traffic on Highland Springs. Let me tell you, it's all important. Because what it does, it kind of boils down to this. Before I ended up getting involved in the city in terms of an official function, I live in Solera. I worry very much about my property values. For almost everybody in the room, Your biggest dollar investment that you have in your life right now is your property. For some people, that may not be true. The average person, that's the way it is. If we do not do the right thing by you, every day we don't, we're affecting your property values. We're affecting your quality of life. So that is the highest mission that we can go. We have to keep you safe. We have to keep you driving on your roads properly. We have to keep a respectable, sustainable city where your property values are increasing and not decreasing as much as in our control. We don't control the world. So even though these things seem ancillary to our lives, they're not. They're very much woven in to the most important things, which is how we live our day. I'm going to turn. Oh, we do have one of the things that comes up that's a point of confusion. I'm going to call the chief up here so he can tell you this. One of the things that comes under an umbrella of confusion is, what do we do about public safety in gated communities? Just how much can the police force actually support you within a gated community? And this was brought up by one of the residents, so I'm going to ask the chief to clarify this for you. And then I'm going to put our city manager back on the spot.
Thank you, Mayor. You might notice my red notebook. Never have to worry about somebody stealing it when they forgot it. Nobody wants this thing. So that question comes up: what service does the Beaumont Police Department provide to our residents in gated communities? And it would take a long time to get to the different what-ifs and scenarios, but I can tell you that every call that the police department receives is prioritized. Higher? Is that better? Okay. My arms are tired. All right. So every call is prioritized based on life safety. So if the call is, let's say your home, your residence is occupied, you believe somebody's breaking in, that is a priority one call. There's a life in danger. But let's say you come home and discover your house has been burglarized, everybody's long gone, and you call it in. Depending on the shift, how many officers we have deployed, that call's going to sit because your house isn't going to get any more broken into at the time, right? And so, collisions, traffic collisions with injuries or unknown injuries, those are life safety. So we have to prioritize those calls where a life is in danger. And so they vary from the collisions to in-progress calls or a man with a weapon or domestic violence, because I think we have a propensity for those types of crimes. So beyond that, even I was given need an example earlier today is, as you guys know, code enforcement does not enforce your rules and regulations, but if somebody changes the wiring in their home and they change the garage into living quarters and they've really messed with the wiring and there's a danger, we're going to come out. I'm going to bring the fire department, the fire marshal, and everybody with me until I know that your house is safe, and if you have to, we'll red tag it. So each call gets looked at on the veracity of each call. So, and then the final part we'll talk about is traffic enforcement. And I got my car running, I'm going to run out right after this, but it depends on that as well. So these are private streets. I've talked to you all about this before, about having care and regard and respect for each other. In here, I totally need it. As soon as I turn 55, I'm moving in. All right? I want to live here. I don't want to be out there on the streets with the 18-year-olds or the 16-year-olds learning how to drive. But as I keep hearing all the traffic concerns, I'm not sure I'm moving in just yet. We got to get this fixed. And so we're working with the group here on some ideas on traffic calming measures. I'm not a big fan of speed bumps. I think sometimes they give a false sense of security. People with the jacked up trucks, they don't even have to slow down for them, right? But what we're going to do is continue to work with your board and your general manager, Eric, and we're going to come up with some ideas at least to help y'all abide by the traffic rules, okay? I know you have to hit the signal light on Adamsburg at a certain time to get on the freeway at a certain time, and you're saying, I get all that. I come down there every morning to 2nd Street Marketplace. I use the gym there, Anytime Fitness. I deal with it every day. In fact, today I met with Anita, and then I took First Street to Beaumont. I timed it how long it took to get over the overpass on Beaumont Avenue. I made the right turn on Beaumont from First, and I cleared 5th Street, to get to 6th. It took 7 minutes. And you have to watch as anybody passing me on the right shoulder. I was ready for him, though. I was ready. Now, I wait for them to do it, and then I turn the light on. It's no fun to prevent it. I always tell them, I didn't know you were a cop. I know. You shouldn't be doing that. So my commitment to everybody here is we're going to continue to be creative. I do not let bureaucracy get in the way of solutions. And so we're going to work with your team and try to fix these traffic issues. But I can just say, if somebody's driving erratic, and it's one of y'all residents, I know other people driving there, service workers and different people that do things in there, it's not just you. Don't confront them. Okay, just call us. Or if it is a resident, write down their plate, turn it into the management. I know that you guys have some fines or some of your own rules, but don't make a situation worse by confronting somebody that's already hostile. Does that make sense? So, because what happens is people go, well, I can't get the police out here if I just say that they sped. But if I don't get in their face and then they threaten me, I need the police out here quicker. Now you're creating something that didn't need to be. Just report it, okay? All right. You're welcome.
All right. Questions? Okay. When in the future will the train horn stop? I think they stopped right now. Didn't John hear? Train? Okay, well, answer that. And I hate to tell you, but the answer is they're not going to stop. There are some very expensive things we can try to do to help mitigate the amount of time that they do load. But there are on average 60 trains a day that come through this stretch of the Roosevelt. And so under federal transportation laws, they're required to blow their horns under certain conditions. We had actually looked at building some what's called grade separations, or quiet zones, where you actually create a safety area where they don't have to blow their horn unless they see something. So they still blow their horns. So unfortunately, there's just not a lot we can do, and particularly there's a lot of money we can spend, but still stop it. When will we have a CVS pharmacy? I have one in my back pocket. We actually are talking to Rite Aid. Is that good? No. Okay. Walgreens? Is that good? No. How about Super Target? Would that be okay? Yeah. Costco? Would that be okay? We don't have those. We don't have those. So, we're open, and we're open for everybody. We love CVS as well, but they just haven't come to play yet. So, why is the city on a webpage under construction? One of the projects we're doing right now is a branding project. Part of that project is coming up with some imagery for the city of Beaumont. And part of that project, once we get that done, we'll be finishing out a brand new website for the city. And so it'll include, project updates, it'll include where we are major projects, as well as kind of key development-related issues that are out there. So I apologize for the condition of it, but it is something that's underway. So we'll probably launch it in the first quarter of 2019. So probably right around February, March is when we'll be looking to launch the new city website. What about the traffic signal at Beaumont and I-10? Beaumont is much too short. In the mess on Hot Springs and I-10. I think the mayor said she enjoys the Bee Gees a lot, so she asked us not to do anything with Hot Springs and I-10. So one of the things that I didn't mention, and we talked about this in the past, we were being sued by WRCOG, and we lost, and we had a $60 million plus judgment against the city. We negotiated that away, and as part of that negotiation, we actually brought a lot more money, actually tax dollars, sales tax dollars that have been collected by Beaumont for years that you were getting the money for, is actually coming back to the city. So you've got probably, what will amount ultimately to close to about $1 million a year that'll be coming into the city that'll go towards street maintenance. And you go, well, how's that helping in Hot Springs? Well, it's kind of somewhat ancillary in that we've got to do a full town, but you've got streets that are starting to have some wear and tear over here too. So there's dollars that will come back over. SB1 has got some key dollars right now. The next 10 years, SB1, if it stays after November 6th, will actually generate about $1 million a year that goes towards street maintenance and upgrades that we need. SB1 also has a component which is major highway funding. So the major, and I know the question says, don't tell me about an overpass, Hot Springs. That is a long-term deal. It's not an immediate fix. It's got to happen at some point. Banning is now developing on their side of Hot Springs. So if you're familiar with the Sundance community, they're basically got a carbon copy of that on the north side of Hot Springs. So they're looking at some road improvements, and they're talking with Pardee, the developer up there, about providing some dollars to address some of that issue. Joshua Palmer on the north side, readjusting all that, some signalization efforts. The other thing that we've been talking to Pardee about is some other support things that might help to alleviate the traffic problem on Hot Springs down here. So we are actually out to design right now on a widening of Pennsylvania Avenue from 6th Street down to 1st. Our plan includes the construction to extend 2nd Street now once we widen Pennsylvania to connect over. So 2nd Street down to Pennsylvania, 1st Street improved, new signalizations that come. That's phase 1. And Pardee again is funding that project. So that's actually happening. We should have construction going on that within the next year to year and a half is the conclusion of that, hopefully within 2 years. The second phase of that project would actually be ramps that are needed. So we're talking to Caltrans right now. We've actually gotten authorization to create that interchange there at I-10 in Pennsylvania. Before last year, in the last 2 years, Caltrans finally said, okay, we'll allow an interchange there. They said it was too close to Hot Springs and too close to California. They weren't going to allow it in years past. So we got over that hump with them. So Pennsylvania, that phase 1 widening signalization is actually underway right now. And that'll help. And Banning is also working with WRCOG in the county to extend Sun Lakes Boulevard down so we can go back east. So that'll help disperse traffic back east. And then with Pennsylvania and 2nd Street and our side, that'll help disperse traffic west down Pennsylvania. Yeah, fix the roads on Pennsylvania and California Street. They're horrible. They're devastating. So I think we addressed that. Pennsylvania is underway. And California, we have a part of our CIP includes a major road maintenance program, which we're in the process now of scheduling out the road. California is already on that item. And then last question, infrastructure-wise, Beaumont building so many homes, especially of Highland Springs, with no infrastructure to support them. The traffic in Beaumont is becoming ridiculous. Oh, this is about the OPEX. Another benefit of the city. It is a long-term benefit. Like I said, it's not an immediate benefit. Every project that comes through does a traffic study, does an environmental study, and it looks at what their responsibilities are as a developer to mitigate their impact. So the concept is every developer has a little piece that they have to do. And so cumulatively, all those efforts come together and make it happen over a period of time. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of money, and it's hard to get out and build those pieces of infrastructure. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in advance. So developers come in, they make some road improvements, they provide some payment, and then we work with Caltrans and others to try to make those improvements happen. So, you know, it's not an easy or quick answer to that. The developers bring in the cash, they bring in the fees to help provide the funds to help make these improvements happen. So, you know, it's part of the growth constraint that we have. It's part of the growing pains that we have. One of the key issues, though, is that we do seriously look at what the impact we think is going to happen with that development, and we do take mitigating measures. Those measures have to be consistent legally with the demand that the developers actually bring. And so that's what they call rational nexus. So we do go through a process to try to make that happen. And we ultimately try to coordinate all of it to do the best that we can to address those impacts. Those are all. Oh, we've got one more question. Oh, why didn't we get a haircut before tonight?
I'm going to just add a detail to that last question. You know, if we could control the world, there's lots of things we do differently. And one of the cycles that we cannot control is that it is the developer impact fees and the TUMP fees, what we call the TUMP fees, that end up going through a cycle that we can't speed up. It has to be paid, so therefore the houses go in, or the houses are in the process of going in. When the city gets the money, the city has to turn that money because of the way that it's legislative in our community. The city turns that money over to WRCOG, the Western Regional Council of Governments, which, if you remember, is the one that sued us in the past because we didn't turn the money over in the past. We do now. So you think of that money, it has to go from the developers to the city. The city makes sure that the accurate amount is coming in. It gets remitted to the Western Regional Council of Governments, and basically then projects are funded, like the infrastructure to help with Oak Valley, to help with Pennsylvania, with our project for Pennsylvania. We'd like to be able to put all that stuff in before the houses are built, before the developers do their projects, but we can't control that cycle. So what we do, what we're obligated to do, and what we're committed to doing, is keep that cycle as short as is possible, and also to keep our strength and visibility and our voice strong with WRCOG, making sure the developers do the right thing with the dollars as quickly as possible, and get it back on your streets. So there are some of the things we wish we could control a little bit differently, but we can't. It's like getting the money for fixing the roads. It has to go through a process before it actually gets applied in the city. We have road crews now, we have a priority grid in the city. So basically they're not going to do my road before they do the road that needs it the most. So there's a real application of a priority grid in the city for things happening. So those things, unfortunately, take a little bit of lead time. So we have another question, which the last question, I think probably that we're going to get to that. But before I do that, I want to mention what we have over here is Heidi and her crew, and they are from Wyman Associates. There are special tax consultants who help us with our CFD and our Mello Roos and our apportionments and all of the details that we need to do to make sure we do the right thing with that money. So they were brought here tonight because we wanted to make sure you had the depth to your questions that you needed. So if they have some of the CFD and Mello Roos questions already. If you have questions, you're welcome to go over and make sure that they have them. They will make sure that they're followed through on with us to make sure that everything is answered. So I don't want to underestimate the importance of them coming tonight. They're really the A-team in terms of finding out all the answers to your questions. So with that, we've got a public safety, police department related question.
Chief is still here, right? I might need your backup, Chief. Now, so the question is, why isn't the police department getting a larger portion of the budget? Safety doesn't come cheap. Public safety takes up about half of the general fund budget. It's about a quarter of the total city budget when you factor in all the other costs that are there. And so it's really a balance within a growing community of trying to keep up with the demand that's there and to keep the department sustainable. I'm going to go back to this slide. So, yeah, again, you've got a very dramatically swinging amount of revenue coming into the city. And so one of the concerns I have is if we hire officers and we start programs, are we going to be able to sustain them? Because it's not something you can hire and spend up to a budget knowing you're going to have a shortfall, and what happens? Do you lay people off? Do you cut programs? We can't do that to families that come to work for us and people that come to work. So one of the key things we did is we said, let's go make sure that our compensation packages are fair and equitable within our marketplace. And we did that study to determine what that compensation should be. And ultimately, I think we've got a compensation and benefit package for our public safety personnel that's very competitive. As a matter of fact, we're now starting to attract other officers, good quality, qualified officers from other areas now coming to work in Beaumont. We're very happy with that. When we had the economic downturn that we had to make some choices in terms of laying off people and cutting programs and not funding equipment. Other departments were touched, parks were touched, community services was touched, and then we were able to hold some of the sworn positions that were actually filled. We did freeze some positions. We're looking now at what is the next step. So Chief and I have been working, we actually talked to council at our last budget workshop about what are the next steps we need to take to grow the department. And the department isn't just police officers, it's the dispatch personnel, it's the communications people, it's the administrative support people that are handling everything else that's out there. So all that is important, and that is the #1 effort that we have in our budget moving forward. So we feel good about our compensation packages. We've got plans to begin to address the other elements that are there. We also have the balance of the city to look at. Key issue that we really had, the #1 issue for this year was to address fire and EMS. So we're in the process of designing and building the West Side Fire Station, which will help supplement all of the public safety people there. So it's a matter of balance and making sure that we're covering and addressing the programming things that are out there. Don't you have anything else that needs to be added to that?
I see the look. But very briefly, in a perfect world with a blank check, right, we have more. But what we do is we hire smart, dedicated police officers and professional staff. The majority of your police department lives in the city, myself included. So I live here in Beaumont. We make smart decisions. We eliminate bureaucracy. We have a great volunteer program. Where's Linda? Sorry. There she is. Our citizen volunteer program is robust. Our young explorers. So what we might not have in numbers, we have in smart, hardworking professionals. And so we're getting the job done. Violent crime is very low in Beaumont, very low. And so, so we just thank you for your support. It's one of our greatest support bases is right here in Four Seasons. And so they're out there working very hard, trust that, okay?
Okay. Thank you all for coming. This is a wonderful, wonderful presentation from our city manager, Todd Parton, our chief of police, our mayor, Nancy Carroll, and this is the group that helped put this together. So Eric Czar wanted to know, why am I calling him up here? Because he has been so cooperative, and he is our general manager, and he's doing everything that he can to make this a premier community and work with us. Donna Lewis is really fabulous. She helps us with all and everything, anything I can ask her to do. And she is our lead block captain. She's making sure that we are staying on top of everything. Jeremy Monahan is our liaison for safety, and he's also a part of our neighborhood watch. So everything is done not just by one person, it takes a team. And this community is a team, and we're all working to make this so that when he's able, and he's able to come in here, it will still be a premier community. Please give them a huge round of applause. Thank you all, and as Nancy said, and I'm going to let Nancy in this because I'm not sure. The Webb and Associates are here, so she will direct you as to what to do.
They are an excellent, extraordinary team that is on top of your CFDs. Heidi is ready to commandeer any answer you need. If she needs more time, she will tell you. Yeah, grab a piece of paper if you just want to leave it behind with her, or if you want to go up to the table. Webb and Associates has done extraordinary work for the city. They were handed a mess, and they were all on board right away. Please take advantage of them tonight. Let's give them a hand.
Thank you all for coming again, and we'll see you.